Okay, we're going to get started. I just want to say hello, everyone. I am Rachel Helms. I'm an assistant director here at Alumni Relations at Middle Tennessee State University. Thank you for signing up for our Thriving Through the Holidays, Nourishing Your Body with Healthy Eating. Before we get to our program, I just want to say thank you for being here. As an MTSU alumni, you are a vital part of our university and our community. We are always looking for ways to connect with our alumni, whether it be through our students or at one of our events or through one of our free webinars like this one. We have a ton of information on our website at mtsu.edu/alumni. And don't ever hesitate to give us a call or send us an email. That is what we are here for. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speakers for today. Christina Byrd is a proud MTSU alum. She is currently the Senior Program Coordinator for MTSU's Center for Health and Human Services. She manages 3 large-scale grants, including 2 funded by the Tennessee Department of Health and 1 by the Health Resources and Service Administration. She launched the Blue Raiders Drink Up program in 2019, an initiative aimed at combating diabetes and obesity among MTSU students by promoting healthier beverage choices. Sarah Nicolette is a registered dietitian at the MTSU Health Clinic. She provides students with free nutrition and counseling and education. She helps MTSU students to make informed decisions about their health and well-being and guides them in developing healthy eating plans, managing medical conditions, and making healthier choices. Please note we will have a question and answer period towards the end of the presentation. Just be sure to drop any of your questions in the chat. We'll be sure to answer those. Other than that, Christina, Sarah, thank you for being here. I will turn this over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rachel. And thanks everybody for being here today. As Rachel mentioned, I hope this webinar leaves you empowered and equipped to navigate holiday eating during the holidays. This time of year can be extremely stressful, especially with family gatherings, foods that you might not typically be consuming. Sarah has a wonderful presentation coming up very shortly. But before that, I'd just like to provide some background on the Center for Health and Human Services, as well as the Blue Raiders Drink Up program. Here at CHHS, our mission and vision is to shape a healthier future by advancing the health and well-being of Tennesseans. Achieving this vision truly takes a village. If you look at the slide, you'll see a photo of our team from the left from 2019, and in just 5 years, we've nearly tripled in size, which is a tremendous blessing, and that reflects growth of our impact. Love our team so much. Our mission is to facilitate strategic partnerships, conduct collaborative public health research, and implement outreach projects across Tennessee to address health disparities and foster healthy communities. One of our key goals here at the center is to identify Tennessee's most pressing public health challenges and develop solutions through research and evidence-based practices. Our core values are listed below, which are collaboration, innovation, excellence, and engagement. All of those are very, very important. And since our founding in 1992, in partnership with the Adams Chair through 2015, the center has secured over $7 million in grants and contracts to support our mission. Since 2015, CHHS has operated independently, receiving an additional $18 million in funding to date. Our programs, projects, and research have touched all 95 counties in the state of Tennessee. And to learn more about the impactful work that we're doing here, I encourage you to visit our website, which is mtsu.edu/CHHS. Now, before I hand things over to Sarah to share her valuable insights on thriving through the holidays, I'd like to briefly highlight one of our impactful programs here at the center, one in which Sarah is directly funded through. It is the Blue Raiders Drink Up program, and it was developed in response to a pressing need. At the time the original grant was written, Tennessee ranked 5th in the nation for youth obesity rates among children ages 10 through 17. The consequences of youth obesity, extend far beyond teenage years, as we may know. Obese children have double the risk of developing cardiovascular disease and are 4 times more likely to develop type 2 diabetes over their lifetime. They are also at a higher risk for certain cancers, as well as facing a shorter life expectancy. So here is a striking statistic. Over 75% of adolescents with type 2 diabetes has a close relative with the condition. However, it's not always about genetics. It often stems from shared habits that increase the risk. That's where our team comes in. Led by our registered dietitian, Sarah, and our health coach, Becky Figueroa, the Blue Raiders Drink Up program is designed to counter these unhealthy habits and empower students to make more informed choices for themselves, particularly regarding beverage consumption. All services provided through Blue Raiders Drink Up are completely free to students, as this program is funded by the state of Tennessee Project Diabetes Initiative. Just to share some of our successes from the first pilot program, we were able to educate over 4,131 MTSU students and implemented 2 key policy changes that will have a lasting impact beyond the grant period. First, Student Health Services calculates BMIs at every appointment and initiates dialogue on beverage choice and healthy weight when appropriate. Lastly, Student Affairs now provides information on the water refill stations located across campus and various health resources that are completely free for students to use. And due to this program's success, we actually secured a second round of funding to continue expanding this program for an additional 3 years. While all the initial activities continue, as far as health coaching, cooking classes, educational food demonstrations, we've expanded our focus to providing food demonstrations specifically in the residence halls for freshmen, because that is our target population, tackling the conversation on campus for healthier vending machine options, as well as providing support to the MTSU food pantry, getting them healthier, shelf-stable food. Currently, we're in our final year of this second grant cycle, and we're actually preparing to apply for a third round of funding. Blue Raiders Drink Up has truly become an integral part of MTSU's culture, fostering healthy habits across campus. And with that, I will turn things over to Sarah, our dietitian, who will bring everything full circle and will share essential tips and strategies for eating healthfully during the holiday season.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christina. Like she said, my name is Sarah. I'm the registered dietitian over here at Health Services. If you guys remember where that is, I have a tiny little office over here. But yes, I work with students completely free, free of charge. They don't get any fees or anything working with me. We talk about literally everything regarding food, but like she says, with the focus on beverage consumption, drinking water, exercise, things like that. But today, we're going to be talking about the holidays. I know with Thanksgiving break having just passed and people celebrating during that time, a lot of us feel some type of way of how we chose to eat then. And some people might carry some guilt around this time of the year because they feel like they do too much or they eat too much. And so I'm going to try and hopefully dispel some of these things and hopefully teach you a way that you could be a little bit more mindful and kind to yourself during this holiday season. So when we think about, that's why the PowerPoint is called Thriving Through the Holidays, not Surviving the Holidays, because I want you to be able to come, after New Year, still be the same person that you were before. So when we think about holiday seasons, regardless on which holidays that you celebrate, celebration is usually a time for indulgence. Most people think, even though it's mostly time that we spend with our family, we think of it as a time where we could spend time eating, where we get the cakes and the cookies and the treats. Christina, I think you've moved the camera. Oh, there you go. So yeah, we get the treats. And then we often give over during these festivities to overindulging, to the good tasting food. Maybe I want my grandma's casserole or whatever that is. So during this time, I usually would say it's so easy to get caught up in these feasts, but I think going into it not completely blind, because this happens every single year, but going in with the plan is the best way to do it. Do not set, I usually say, avoid setting any sort of insane goals for yourself during this time. If it's, I'm only going to have these specific portions, or I'm only going to have one plate. Avoid setting goals like I'm going to continue trying to lose weight during this time, or I'm going to continue to try to maintain habits that were hard for me beforehand. The holiday season can be really hard for people, not only with the stress that they feel being around family, but also the stress that they may feel planning things. So try not to set important, like really big goals, because you'll usually find that we end up disappointing ourselves, or we might not meet those goals as quickly or as fast as we had thought that we would. So just to avoid that disappointment, start off whatever goals you have set over this, take them away. So who are the culprits of most of the holiday festivity eating? So we think of rich desserts, cakes, pies, cookies. My favorite is cheesecake. Any sort of sugary treats. These are usually have a little bit more calories than normal things that we'd consume in our diet. Butters and fats, and usually excessive amounts of sugar. Then we have fatty appetizers. These could be like cheese balls, sausage rolls, bacon wrapped anything. Or it could be anything that's high in saturated fat. Usually anything with milk or butter or cheese on top of it, or all three, tend to be some of the culprits for this. And then starchy side dishes. I think I usually think of mashed potatoes first, stuffing, breads, rolls, things like that. They can usually be a little bit higher in carb and contain some unhealthy fats as well. And then any alcoholic beverages, it usually just depends on how you celebrate, but some people might find that they have an eggnog or multiple eggnogs, or things like I learned about hot toddies recently. Apparently another alcoholic drink that is a little bit higher in sugar. And then holiday cocktails, they just, again, have a little bit more sugar in them. And we talk about sugary beverages here, and then also calories, of course. So these are the things that you want to not avoid in your diet, because it's almost going to be impossible to do that. But instead, these are going to be the things that you just want to keep a focus on, keep almost a monitor on. And we'll talk about how we're going to do that in a second. So what is the impact of overeating long term? Now, we're just talking about the holidays in general. So usually you might not see that big of an impact. I guess it depends on how hard you celebrate. But you might see with some initial weight gain or bloating. You might notice some digestive or indigestion. Usually people get diarrhea or constipation or the bloating or anything like that because they've eaten more than they typically do in one sitting. So our stomach is not primed to handle that. So you might expect some of those digestive problems. And then increased blood sugar. We talk about the sugary beverages here, but based on all these pastries and desserts that we might be eating during this time, pies, high blood sugar might spike our blood sugar over time. And if you're somebody that might be at risk of prediabetes or type 2 diabetes, or you're just trying to watch sugar, then that might be something that might be interesting to you to know. High cholesterol as well. Again, one holiday is not going to make or break these things, but I thought it was just important to mention if you do have high blood sugar already or high cholesterol, or you're trying to manage that, the holidays definitely don't make it easier for you. And then, of course, a weakened immune system. This is usually a long-term thing, but especially during the winter or fall season in January, we're trying not to get sick. It's flu season. The type of insufficient diet, insufficient calories, poor nutrition, not eating our fruits and veggies, those things can make us more susceptible to illness. So then I think this next part is really important. This is sometimes in the clinic, this is the first time students ever talk about this topic specifically, hunger and fullness. Because it sounds weird for me to say, okay, when do you feel hungry? Okay, when do you feel full? And they're like, why are you asking me these questions? Like, of course I feel hungry. Of course I feel full. But oftentimes we find that their definition of hunger or fullness is completely warped. So I usually use this scale as a way for you and me to identify when do we feel hungry. So that green area right there that's highlighted in that box is a healthy eating pattern. You start eating at 3 or 4 and you stop eating at 5 or 6. That you want to stay within that range. Now, if we see those like outskirts there, okay, I'm so starved, I'm dizzy, I'm weak, I feel like my blood pressure's dropped, you've kind of hit a wall, that would be number 1. Number 2 is being so hungry that you start to feel irritable, hangry, or like lots of stomach growling, like uncontrollable, where you feel like you have to apologize to everybody in the room. And then we get the 3 through 6, which is normal. If you notice, 6 is mildly full with no discomfort. A lot of people think that they need to stop eating when they feel like they have to unbutton their jeans or like something like that, when they feel like they have to lay back to really like try and digest it, to contain all of the food. But in actuality, if you're feeling discomfort after eating, that probably means you ate too much. And most people don't realize that because most of us we are taught to eat the way that like Christina said, the eating patterns at home, it's not always genetics. It could just be the lifestyle. So I know as a kid, my mom always told me to eat everything on my plate. And so for my tiny little child body, my tiny little child stomach can't handle adult portions, but I learned over time to override that and eat until I'm uncomfortable because I have to finish everything. I don't want to waste food. I get that a lot in the clinic. Students like, I don't want to throw things away. I don't want to save leftovers. I just want to eat it now because then I'll have to reheat it and all of these things. And then, of course, number 9, where it says Thanksgiving stuffed, we think of that, we have to take a nap on the couch. If you're getting to that point often, that usually means that there's a problem with portion sizes or overeating. So before you begin eating, ask yourself, I know it's a crazy idea, am I hungry? Am I actually hungry? Like, check in. Is my stomach growling? Do I need to eat food right now? Am I bored? Am I stressed? Am I sad? Am I anxious? These can be common triggers for overeating. And it's why people feel like they need to constantly get up and grab snacks from their pantry because they're sitting at home over the weekend and they're like, wow, I have nothing to do. So instead, I'm going to turn on a TV show or a movie. Instead, I'll grab something to eat at that time. And so identifying what is actual hunger, which is way harder than we think it is. Identifying when am I actually hungry, when am I actually full, and then what are the things that trigger me? So what are the things that make me feel more hungry? And usually stress, especially for students, is the biggest thing. But just starting there is where I want all of you to start before you even begin the holiday season. And that'll help inform everything else after. So when we think about mindful eating, this is kind of most people think this is like a nothing word. Okay, eat mindfully, whatever. Like, yeah, I'll be mindful when I eat. But I usually think of this more as like conscious eating. A lot of people kind of go on autopilot when they eat. They just like kind of, okay, there's food in front of me. I'm going to turn off for a second and I'm going to focus on this one thing. But instead, mindful eating asks you to be present while you're doing that. So it's whether it's with conversation with people, it's looking down at your plate, it's assessing, constantly checking in with yourself. Am I hungry? Am I not hungry? It's very judgment free. So not judging how much I ate or didn't eat. It's asking you to enjoy food rather than using food to fill something else. And again, of course, being conscious. So how do you even start doing this? How do I start doing it with my family this holiday season? Okay, never eat alone. I know it's going to be easy for a lot of people if there's a big gathering. Always sit with people. Put your device away. Put your phone away. Don't try if you can. I know some families are different to not sit in front of a television or not try and watch a movie while you're doing it. Instead, talking face to face with people, oftentimes stopping for conversation, can help us slow down while we're eating. And why do we want to slow down? Because it can take 20 minutes for our stomach to feel full. So it's a hormone response. It's not a nerve response like, oh, stomach's full, immediately goes to the brain. No, our brain has to make hormones that then have to travel through our body that then tell us that we're full. It's a much slower process. So it takes about 20 minutes to do that. So eating a mealtime should never be like 10 minutes done and I've gone back for 3 or 4 plates already. Instead, it should be a little bit more thoughtful of, I'm going to put 1 plate, I'm going to make this the best plate it can be, and then I'm going to eat this and I'm going to wait. Okay, I know the food might get cold, but we'll reheat it. But this is a practice that we start doing for ourselves, not for forever, but just so that we start, I guess, being in tune with what our body is telling us. Because for so long, we aren't. And if you can over the holiday season, don't try to overserve yourself. Remember, you don't have to finish everything on your plate. I know we want to be nice to, Auntie Carol or whoever else brought this. I know we want to eat the whole thing of her casserole, but hey, just say, I took a couple bites, tastes great. You don't have to eat the whole thing. Maybe you take a little bit of everything, and you nibble on it just to be nice, but you don't have to overserve yourself. And if you feel full, stop. And I know that's a very hard thing to tell people. If you feel full, stop. Okay, next guy. So when we think about what makes meals balanced, and this might look different for everybody, but we think of the My Plate method. I like to modify this a little bit just because the My Plate, although it's great, it's a recommendation. It's not always feasible for everybody to eat this perfect diet every single time, especially over the holidays. You're going to find that maybe there are no fruits available unless they're in a pie, like that, or maybe the vegetables that I have are in casseroles. They're not salads. Or maybe the grains, there's only grains. That's what happened on my Thanksgiving. It was only grains. And I was like, how do I make this balanced with bread and mashed potatoes and pasta and this? We just have to make it work. So I literally had to be like, okay, I'll make the vegetable just so that I could end up having a balanced meal that day. And so I usually say aim for the 3 out of 5 rule. 3 out of the 5 things that are on that little plate, if we're going to count, you can count dairy or you can make that a fat if you want, because I know some people don't like dairy. Aim for 3 out of 5 of those things. If your plate contains 3 out of 5 of those things, pat on the back, did a good job. That's considered a balanced meal. And that's, if it's way more balanced than you would typically eat, then good. That's just a good starting point for not beating yourself about your plates not being perfect, because this is just a diagram, and the recommendations you're gonna find them really constricting if you try to do that. Also, eating in order. Some people find this helpful if they have trouble with portion sizes. Eat in order of vegetables, fruit, protein, carb, and then your dessert. So what you're doing now is you're kind of forcing yourself to manage your portions accidentally. Because your stomach is slowly filling up. Vegetables are high in fiber, which add a lot of density to meals. So they will keep you fuller for a little bit longer. So if you eat the vegetables first, and then if there's fruit available, do the fruit. If there's protein, a turkey or beef or whatever the protein source is, or chicken or fish, or we do that next. Protein is very filling. Then we do our carb, mac and cheese, and these can all be on the same plate, but this is like the order of operations of how we're going to be eating, if this is something that you struggle with. And then we do dessert. Maybe you go back for a second plate and you're like, okay, dessert doesn't look as good as it did before because I'm kind of full. And then of course, choose sugar-free beverages if you can. Maybe you're the person who brings the sugar-free beverage. If it's water, if it's even like the 0 sugar diet sodas, things like that. If it's just a tea, maybe whatever it is that you like. But trying to avoid those sugar-free beverages because of the blood sugar spikes, and because they just are adding nothing to the diet, especially if you're trying to eat as much as you possibly can, or try everything. And also try to avoid beforehand overeating. So try to avoid, okay, how am I going to phrase this? Try to eat beforehand. And I know the people are going to struggle with this one. Try to eat beforehand. I tried this during Thanksgiving as well, because I had heard somebody try this. I ate breakfast that morning. I ate lunch that day. And then when dinner came around, I just had a normal meal. Because when you're saving not spoiling your appetite is what my grandmother used to say, you don't want to spoil your appetite by eating the cookie before the whatever, but instead spoil the appetite. I give you permission to spoil it. Eat breakfast, eat lunch the day of. Don't save anything, because all that does is it doesn't give you more space in your stomach. Instead, it just makes you more ravenous by the time you get to the meal. The only thing you're thinking about when you get to that party or that gathering is, when are we eating? And it's the only thing on your mind. So instead of actually spending time with people, and it's when is the food being served? When can I go? And so at that point, you might find that you overserve, overportion, overeat, because you're trying to compensate for not eating anything all day. Also, that really does not help your blood sugars. We want to be eating consistently throughout the day. So eating a breakfast, eating a lunch, eating a dinner, maybe having some snacks. We just want to keep it very consistent. So try that if it's something that interests you as well. Um, and so we'll go on the day of. Today is whatever holiday it is. It's previous Thanksgiving, it's New Year's Eve, or it's whatever it is. Do not avoid the foods that you want. If there are foods that you are really looking forward to, don't say, "Oh, I can't have it because it's not good for me." First of all, I'm of the belief that no foods have a moral code. No foods are good, no foods are bad. There are foods that are more health conscious. And if you have goals for yourself, then there might be foods that get you closer to those goals. However, no foods are like, they're not going to like kill you. Like there's nothing good and there's nothing bad about them. Actively trying to avoid the foods that you really are looking forward to makes you want them more. It's like the reverse psychology. It's I'm thinking about those cookies. Oh no, I can't have them. But then you go and have them anyway. And maybe you have more than you wanted to because now you feel bad and you're like, oh, well, now the diet's ruined. That's such a common thinking pattern. That feeling of deprivation, it puts you at an increased risk of eating food that you wouldn't have eaten beforehand. So give yourself permission. Say, okay, I'm gonna have my cookies, I'm gonna have my cheesecake. It's the holidays, I'm celebrating. They taste amazing. So don't go into the mindset of I can't, because it's just gonna make it worse. Make your to-go box. I like this idea. Make your to-go box before you eat. If your family's gonna let you, it depends on everybody else. But if there's so much food here, you're gonna have leftovers, put it in a little box so that way I'm not gonna have to eat this all right now. I can serve myself less just to taste everything, just to be communal and eat with everybody. But then when I get home, I'm going to have leftovers. So make the box beforehand. It's just a subconscious thing where now I don't have to overserve myself before the event. And I think that's a very great idea. And then don't skip meals. I said this in the last one, to save up or to avoid spoiling your dinner. We should be eating every 3 to 5 hours when we talk about that hunger scale from before. Every 3 to 5 hours is when at least waking hours is when we should be eating a meal. So don't try to overcompensate with large portions later in the day. And that goes not even for the holidays, but for everyday life. If you're eating only one meal a day and maybe it's your dinner, okay, maybe we start implementing a breakfast and a lunch slowly. And so using smaller plates, I remember this from when I was a kid. This doesn't help everybody because they just might find that they go for more with the small plate and they don't mind getting up and getting more. But some people find it helpful to use small plates to help limit portion sizes and kind of trick your brain into thinking you have a full plate. And then also, big thing, just tip. Find ways to manage stress to avoid cravings. We talked about it with the hunger and fullness cues, but stress can be a very big trigger for some people, especially over the holidays, during its exam weeks, that they find that everything kind of goes out the window. Stress, cortisol levels increase your appetite. That is what they do. You're so stressed that your body's like, hey, maybe let's intake some calories right now because that feels like something that we should do. Emotional eating is also a thing. So if you're around very stressful people, a very stressful environment, maybe you're in charge of cooking, maybe you're in charge of all of these things, maybe you had to buy presents, or maybe you had to do this, it increases our stress levels. So on the day of, try to find ways to manage it. Hey guys, I'm gonna go out for a walk for a second. I'm just gonna go take a breather. I'm just gonna go decompress somewhere so that before we start, we come together. Maybe I go to yoga in the morning just to kind of decompress from that. Maybe I just take time for myself. Whatever that your stress management technique is, I'm not the stress person. Becky's the stress person, our health coach. So if you have something that works for you, do that the day of to hopefully help manage what you think will happen later with stress levels. And then remember, overeating over the holidays is very normal. Everybody does it. I do it. Nobody's perfect. But by eating mindfully, you can savor more of the food that you actually came here to eat. If I was excited for that casserole, I'm going to get that first. And then everything else is kind of just like, it's dressing, it's confetti. It's just nice to have as well. So just don't beat yourself up. I think this is the worst thing you could do over the holidays. Just remind yourself, this happens every single year, and it's going to happen every single year that I'm alive to be here for them. So I'm going to enjoy them. I'm going to enjoy the time that I spent with my family. And if that includes eating the food that they make, then that includes that. Give yourself permission to enjoy food. That's, food is more than just the nutrients that it provides us. It's not about how calorie dense, how, balanced we can make the meal. Sometimes it just means more to us than that. And it'll always be about celebration with family. So think about first prioritizing the family, the gathering, the everything, celebration itself over the food. The food's just the cherry on top, no pun intended. And I think that's the last slide for me. If anybody has, if we wanted to start the question portion of this, this is our contact information on here. If you needed to get a hold of any of us, we have a newsletter that goes out that you can absolutely access. There's a link right here. And then of course we have a Facebook and Instagram page. You can follow our progress on.
Thank you so much, Sarah and Christina.
No problem.
I learned a lot. Thank you.
I always love to hear that at the end.
Well, if anybody has any questions, be sure to drop them in the chat. I've got one actually that I wanted to ask.
Sure.
A lot of us drink alcohol during the holiday season.
Yes.
Are there any better alcoholic drinks to drink, or is it better just to not drink a lot? Which is always probably
Yeah, I mean,
right?
It could be either or. You could do, again, it would depend on the alcohol. So if we think, for instance, beer is usually a carbier alternative. The eggnogs, the wine even might be a little bit of a carbier alternative. In that case, I would say just minimize it. If you wanted to do other types, I hate to say like, giving recommendations here because it feels bad, but like hard liquors technically have less calories. So you can't technically drink more of them, get more benefit out of them than the wine. But if beer and wine are usually where you typically go, you could always get the lower carb version of them if you're not going to be able to control the portions. And then also drink them while you're eating food. It sounds weird, but like drink them while you're actively eating. One, it helps manage the hangover the next day, but also the wine hangover. It's the worst one for me. But it helps manage that because food kind of acts as like a sponge and it slows down digestion, so it doesn't immediately bombard your liver. But it also you'll be full at the same time, so you're less likely to. It's like drinking soda at a dinner table. If you drink the soda before you eat, there's less room for the food, and now you're just drinking soda because you're too busy like waiting for the food. It's the same kind of principle. So instead, serve wine with food instead. But again, remember, it's a holiday. If you never do this usually, you could use it to celebrate.
Absolutely. And I was reading something recently. It talked about how if you just go for a short walk after you eat, it actually really helps digestion. Is that true?
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct. Sometimes it's just nice also, especially during these like heavier holidays. Most people have the urge to just lay down. The best thing you could do is actually go on the walk. So you want to, hey, family, hey, my favorite cousin, let's go on a walk. Instead, that would be so helpful because it jumpstarts your GI tract to start handling the food. Also, you'll just feel better because you're not like slumped over on the couch where you feel like your stomach is distended. So even like a 15-minute, like a 30-minute walk, talk with somebody, put a podcast in, use that as your decompression stress moment. Like, oh, that dinner was awful. Let me get out of here real quick. Let me go on a walk. So that absolutely, like getting on the walk, and that's true for every day too. Some people find going on a walk after dinner is helpful. It's just low impact, and it encourages your body to start digesting and dealing with the food you just ate. So that's a good thing. I didn't put it on here, but that is a good suggestion.
Well, I know, it's all of us want to just go lay on the couch. That's what most of us do, I think.
Yes. And hey, I did the same thing. Thanksgiving, I had to go to sleep. I was like, I need to take a nap right now. So I like, nobody's perfect. Even though in the moment I knew it was happening, I was like, oh, I need to take that nap so bad right now. Did I feel better when I woke up? No, but maybe going on the walk would have helped.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything, Christina, you want to add? Is there any other tips that we could talk about here? And everybody, like I said, you're welcome to drop any questions in there that you want in the chat room.
But yeah, I think big thing, if you're going to take away anything from this, is don't beat yourself up. I think, like I was just saying, I'm comparing my Thanksgiving self, but I don't think of that with like, oh, that was awful. Why did I do that? Like with hate or prejudice toward myself. But instead, I'm thinking like, oh, it could have been better, but it happened already. Like, there's nothing I could have changed that already happened.
Right.
And so when you're dealing with the after effects, whether it's like you feel very tired, you feel like you have indigestion, you're sitting and you're like, oh, now I'm constipated. It's so easy to just beat yourself down about it. But instead, it already happened. We're just going to work with the symptoms that we have now, and we're just going to deal with it. And so I think that just reframing the mindset that we have about, oh, it's the holidays, I'm just going to throw everything out the window. Um, just being kinder. Please be kinder to yourselves.
That's good advice. We have a question.
Okay.
Lynn Adams asks, is it best to drink a glass of water before you have a meal?
Some people find this helpful. It kind of started a long time ago. I can't remember, probably like the 80s or something, where it was a diet trend to chug a full like 8-ounce glass of water before a mealtime because it would fill your stomach, so you would end up eating less. I don't believe in the principle of that for weight loss, but if you do need to drink more water, that might be a good way to do it. But I would say if you're drink what with your meal instead of chugging a whole glass beforehand. I don't think it's a good long-term solution for managing portions if you know portions are the problem. So if that's what you're trying to change, I don't think, because we're not always gonna, maybe we're not at home right now, maybe I can't chug a whole glass of water before my meal. It's just not accessible most times. So maybe not as a habit, but on special occasions, sure.
Just a random question that I've been
Sure.
wondering. They always tell you to buy organic, eat organic,
Mhm.
blah, blah, blah. And it seems like everything nowadays has the word organic on it. Is it best just to kind of stick with certain vegetables and fruits that you should buy organic, or what do you think? Or
So
what's the
organic, unlike like I would say natural, that's another thing we see in grocery stores, like natural preservatives, natural fruit, natural this. Natural is not a protected term. So I could come out with whatever I want tomorrow, put whatever I want in it and say natural. Nobody's protecting that. The FDA is not going to come down and knock my door and say, why did you put this on here? You need to explain it. Like, give me the resources, give me the information, give me the research, I need to locate everything. Organic is a protected term. So that's just why people feel comfortable with it. I think it has to be 98 or 99% certified organic by the USDA. All of the ingredients that product was made of have organic sources. So the corn made with the chips or things like that, that's what that term means. So if anybody's confused about that, I get this question a lot in the clinic, so I'm usually prepared. So with the organic, it doesn't really make a difference most times. It just means that the way that those foods are grown are grown a very specific way. And you could absolutely look at the standards for organic farming. It's much harder, which is why it doesn't use as many pesticides, which is why they tend to be more expensive at the grocery store, because you're paying for those good versions of it, and the labor that goes into it. But there are some foods that are better to buy organic and some that are not. For instance, I would not buy an organic banana because I don't eat the rind. I literally peel it open and I go to the inside of it. I'm not going to buy an organic banana. But if I'm going to buy something organic, it might be a strawberry, because I'm going to wash it and then bite into it. That doesn't mean that if you don't eat organic that you're going to die. Like, it's nothing like that. If anything, if that is out of your price, like your budget, don't do it. And if anything, if you're worried about that, you could always do frozen alternatives instead, canned alternatives instead of if you're worried about things going bad. But yeah, organic, I think there's a whole list online, but anything with a rind, like oranges or bananas, those things you don't really need to buy organic at all. So don't worry about that. But anything that you're like lettuce or strawberries or blueberries, things like that, you have like crevices to wash out, then I would say, okay, maybe you could. But again, it's not going to make or break your health either way. But that's a good question. I did have to take an entire semester long class on that. And the answer at the end of the class was, I had to read a whole book. was the consensus.
Well,
The
that's
same with GMOs, yeah.
well, yeah, exactly. That's the other question too, is you
Mhm.
hear a lot of people talk about GMOs, and the
Yeah.
a lot of people think that they do a lot of good, and then other
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
think that they don't. And so, what does the science sort of say on that? Like,
GMOs are a funny thing because that's another thing like BPA, the water bottles say BPA free. It's the same thing where people got really scared about something, and so now everything says it. So now you say no GMOs, no BPA, no this. And so the GMOs, people get scared because it stands for genetically modified organism. It's very scary. But genetically modified organism doesn't always mean that I was sitting there in a lab, man-made manipulating those seeds. Instead, it could just be like crossbreeding. And we think of one of the most genetically modified plants that we have out there is the banana. We look at the before and afters, how bananas used to look. Now, all banana plants are the same banana plant. They're all the same breed of banana. That's why they all look the same. So they were genetically modified through crossbreeding to prevent them from dying in droughts and things like that. So for farming purposes, they had to evolve in the way that the world is changing and climate change and all this stuff. Like these things had to evolve. Now, there are other things people use in labs, like they change the DNA of them to um, make them toxic to certain bugs. Like it's so that they don't eat the crops. They also make natural preservatives so they don't go bad as fast, which sounds scary. I know. It's like saying things have chemicals in them. But the GMOs are not always bad. I wouldn't say they have, as far as the research says, there's not a long-term consensus that if I eat genetically modified organisms, they will increase my risk of cancer or something like that. So again, if your price range says genetically modified is the way to go, then the genetically modified is the way to go. But again, I think it was more of a scare tactic than it was which is my whole job, dealing with misinformation and scare tactics in food. Like I could go write a bunch about a grocery store.
understand.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's I can't even go in there anymore. It's sad for me.
Into a grocery store?
No, I do like online ordering, but whenever I
Right.
see the
Okay.
new products come through and like the way that they market them, and there's a lot of
Okay.
murky water with marketing and food, and it's just not. There's wonderful books written on it about like grocery store marketing tactics and things like that. If you're ever interested, but it's like I think it's called Food Politics. It's very good.
Food politics. Okay. Well, I just want to thank you both for doing this.
Sure.
I really, really appreciate it. I learned a lot, and I'm getting messages here where they say this has been very helpful. Oh, wait, we got another question. Let's see here. Is it better to get regular food instead of their reduced fat or fat-free option? For example, fat-free cream cheese or sour cream?
Um, sorry, one more time. Was it the reduced
Sure.
fat versus the what was
Yeah,
the option?
would it be better to get the regular one instead
Okay.
of the reduced fat or fat free? And the
Okay.
example she gave was cream cheese or sour cream.
Okay. Always get the reduced fat
Oh,
whenever
okay.
you can. Not even just for like diet purposes or weight gain or weight loss or anything like that, but it's just because I'm telling you, cholesterol is the thing that I see the most. Like a lot of people don't realize how much, especially from dairy products, saturated fats, which impact our cholesterols, are usually found in the dairy products and meats and deli meats and things like that. So if you're drinking milk, doing a skim milk 1%, even 2%, but that's kind of getting into iffy territory. I always say, I don't care what your cholesterol levels look like. If you do reduce fat, you can eat more of the things you love. So I could put more reduced fat cheese on my pizza instead of the whole fat cheese instead. So I get more cheese on my pizza, benefit for me. So in just life in general, if you can always find a reduced fat option and you don't notice a taste difference and it doesn't matter to you, do that instead.
Here's another question.
Oh,
Is it typical to gain a few pounds before losing when changing your eating habits?
yes. Some people might find that happens. Mostly because they weren't eating enough to begin with. It's a big problem with skipping meals, not eating enough calorically to lose weight. Our body likes to go into starvation mode, which means that it'll retain body fat because it thinks that we're starving. It thinks we're on a desert island. So if I don't eat meals or I skip meals constantly, not only am I increasing the stress and inflammation in my body, but that increases the weight gain. So some people might see when they start eating healthy, they might initially start gaining weight because now they're eating calorically enough. And it usually levels out and then they'll start losing weight. It depends usually on somebody's like metabolism, especially if you've not been eating for a long time and you start eating correctly for your health, your metabolism is already so slow that you need to kind of support it. Like you need to be like, okay, we need to get you back up to we're just a machine, it's just we got to get you back up to snuff. So we got to care for the metabolism because once it's shot, it's very hard to get back up. So please eat your meals. It's very important because it's harder for weight loss in general. So yeah, that can be normal for some people.
Does your metabolism slow down, like significantly slow down as you get older?
Yes, it does.
Or is it does. I thought it did.
It does. I
noticing.
think especially for women, I can't remember the exact, usually around like 35, it takes a big dip in metabolism. And so at that point, there are things you could do to improve your metabolism, not like cure it or reverse it, but because you can't reverse aging as far as we know. But exercise is a big thing. So as we age, exercise becomes more and more important. Like it's especially for women with like osteoporosis, bone growth. Like we want to maintain our muscle mass. Please continue exercising, even though you don't feel like you need to. So yeah, metabolism will slow. It'll happen every time.
Great. No. Well, if we don't have any other questions, I think we're good. Is there any other last
Awesome.
words or anything we need to go over? I really, really appreciate all the information.
Sure, absolutely. I always love giving a
Great.
presentation.
Well, that's great. You guys are doing great work. Thank you.
Thank you.
For
Thank
everything
you.
you do for our students and for our university community. We really appreciate it. And just thank you for being here.
Of course, yes.
Thank you.
It's great. I just want to tell everybody, thank you for coming. Starting in 2025, we will have some brand new webinar programming for you. Watch for our newsletter, The Middle Minute, for topic and registration information, or you can go to mtalumni.com. Just as a teaser, we're going to have some topics: exercise medicine, building your own personal brand. We'll have some workshops on career development coming up in the spring. Christina, Sarah, everyone, I hope you all have an amazing holiday season.
Of course.
And absolutely. And so thank you all for joining us. You all have a great day. Okay?
Everybody have a wonderful holiday and break, and don't get too stressed. Okay.
Thank you.
No problem.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.